Well, Kirsten Hillman, Canada's ambassador to the U.S., is stepping down in the new year as the country's top diplomat in Washington. Let's get more from Diamond Isinger. She's an independent consultant and the former special advisor on Canada-U.S. relations in the Canadian Prime Minister's office. Diamond, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Is this a surprise? Were there murmurs of this happening?
I mean, a transition of ambassadors can take place at any time, either by their choice or by the circumstances of their role. We've been really privileged to have the service of Ambassador Hillman for the last many years, certainly in her career as a civil servant, working at Global Affairs Canada, responsible for trade negotiation, followed by her role as deputy ambassador at the embassy in Washington, and then ascending to her most recent role as ambassador. So they are going to be very challenging shoes to fill, and it will be certainly interesting to see how the government chooses to proceed.
Indeed, this is an important time. We have the CUSMA negotiations coming up, and she was one of the faces, really, of Canada for them.
Yeah, she has been at different points a driving force behind NAFTA, CUSMA. Certainly in 2017 and 2018, she played a very active role in offering some expertise to the government of that time. She was also appointed to her senior role at Global Affairs Canada under the then Harper government, and has received a lot of praise from across the board and across political lines for her performance in the roles that she's taken on. One of the things that she's uniquely brought to the table is that lengthy career in trade negotiation, in being a trained lawyer, for example, that are skills that you don't always necessarily see in these appointments, that are often, especially in destinations like Washington, used as political appointments, as opportunities to find representatives that have additional skills to bring to the table.
And who would be the next replacement? We've heard talk of Mark Wiseman, but what will be the key assets that this person has to bring to that position?
Yeah, I'd be unwise to suggest who the exact person should be, or rather who the government will end up selecting. We've heard from the Prime Minister today that things are still in the works, and we'll believe it when a final announcement is made of who. But a balance of skills and experience is ideal, particularly the ability to engage a pretty diverse cross-section of Canadian stakeholders. That's a major part of the role, not just from the business community, but from civil society, labor leaders, others, to make sure that their interests and concerns are represented in talks with the U.S., not just about CUSMA, but about a whole range of topics that we have in common between our two countries. You also need to have the ability to establish and maintain a great relationship with your American counterparts, to deal with the many day-to-day issues that again arise as part of your posting in Washington, and then as well have a great rapport with the team back in Ottawa. The role of ambassador is, I think, most effective when that individual has the trust, the respect, the autonomy to proceed in the ways that they need to get their role done, and to have the access in reverse when issues are emerging in the U.S. to have conversations, for example, with the Canadian Prime Minister or with their team. So all of those factors will be balanced going forward as the government decides who they are going to make our new representative sometime in the new year.
I know you don't want to name names, but do you see this staying internal, or do you see them looking outside for the next person, the next ambassador?
Yeah, it's hard to say based on the commentary, as you've alluded to. I mean, there's some suggestion that it could be, for example, someone like Mark Wiseman or someone from the business community. I think that would be consistent, certainly, with the view that this government has taken of wanting to attract, for example, further investment to Canada, to bolster our relationships with businesses in Canada and all around the world. One of the challenges, though, too, is having someone come into this role who, again, has that breadth of understanding from all of the different facets of the role. It is a very complex one, but every ambassador will also shape their position in the way that makes sense for them and their skills. At different points, we may be better served, for example, to have someone who's a real technical expert. At other times, someone who's great at relationship building. So all those pieces can be balanced as government chooses who the next representative will be.
And of course, the relationship with the president is always interesting, shall we say. That would require a special skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. Although the ambassador themselves, I mean, they are responsible for the general management of the relationship between the two countries, certainly at times dealing with cabinet secretaries or senior administration officials. I don't think it's so essential, for example, that the ambassador have the ability to hold a relationship with the U.S. president. That is typically a responsibility that would be taken on by our Canadian Prime Minister as counterparts, as equals at a table or in conversations. So as long as they have a good handhold on the overall objectives at hand, they have that trust and that rapport in all directions. Ambassador Hillman has been tremendously effective in her role, and also in receiving that sort of respect and praise from all sorts of corners of Canada and the U.S. who have really enjoyed working with her. So the next person will have certainly large shoes to fill.
And where do you see the ambassador ending up with her incredible accomplishments and the accolades for her? What do you think is next for her?
Anyone would be lucky to have Ambassador Hillman in some capacity working with them. I believe from her statement that she made yesterday, she's alluded to her willingness and ability to remain available to government as needed. For example, in advisory capacity, government would be very smart and savvy to take advantage of that offer. We, especially just given the so many ups and downs and ebbs and flows of the last decade, particularly in the Canada-U.S. or Canada-Trump relationship, she has a lot of institutional knowledge of how different pieces have unfolded at different times. And so I certainly remain hopeful that she will be connected to government in some way, but who knows, perhaps serving on some boards, perhaps taking on some corporate leadership opportunities. Only time will tell.
Okay, Diamond, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Diamond Isinger is an independent consultant and the former special advisor on Canada-U.S. relations in the Canadian Prime Minister's office.